All right, we've started a new chapter in life. As you can see, that with the facial hair, whenever I get a haircut, it signifies a new chapter. And so I knew I had to make a big change because I had these dreams in mind that I wanted to act on, but I wasn't taking any steps towards them, right? Sometimes in order to make a change, you have to slap yourself in the face and put yourself in a position where it's inevitable that you'll take action, right? You don't have the option. You have to move forward. And so I signed up for a marathon, and this next series of life, I want to run a marathon in all 50 states. That's my goal for the next year. It's ambitious. I've been training for it for about 3 months, okay? So we'll see how many my body allows. But right now, the goal is all 50 in 1 year. And because that's just who I am. That's my brand, the 50 states guy, the American man. Anyways, I shaved this beard, signed up for the Houston Marathon, and flew down there this past weekend and did the first of 50 marathons. And so today we're going to talk through the experience, and then we're going to do extraction. So you get 2 pieces in one. Extraction on marathons, right? So let's walk through the experience. I fly down there, and it was incredible, right? Because it's like I'm walking into a new life. It's weird walking through the airport with this mustache because, in the past I would have thought, like, what are people going to think about me? Like, I look like this, they're going to think, oh my gosh, like, look at this guy, look at this creep just walking through the airport, right? No one cared at all. I mean, I got a couple of good looks, some laughs, but most of them were just like pretty interested, or basically 90% of them or didn't even care. They were living their own life, and they were just oblivious to the fact that I had this on my face, right? Because to them, I'm not doing this for a video. I'm not doing this, they have no idea about the beard. They're just living their day-to-day life, right? And that's how it usually is, right? So don't get too worked up about what other people think, because they got problems of their own that are probably bigger than the problem of you doing something weird, right? Anyways, walking through the airport, this one guy asked me, he's like, "Young man, what sports do you play?" And I told him, oh no, this was after the race, but regardless. "Well, I just ran a marathon." He's like, "No kidding." And it was awesome, like there's, when you open the door to fun reactions by doing something unique like this, life gets so much better. There's a lot more spice, a lot more flavor. And so maybe there's an encouragement in doing something that's weird, because if everyone is gray, right? No one is colorful. No one is has red or no orange and beautiful colors, right? Then there's no spice. There's no flavor. There's no excitement. And so maybe you think it's weird, maybe you're afraid to do it, but someone else will think it's awesome because they've wanted to do it for their whole life, right? Maybe they've never given themselves the chance to grow out a beard or to cut their hair in a different way or whatever it is, right? Because they were afraid to express their true self, right? And I hate saying it like that because it sounds, fluffy, but you know what I mean, right? They weren't able, or they never were able to rally the courage to do something out of the normal that would set them apart from everyone else, that in turn would give them a lot of, benefit to themselves or more enjoyment of life, because they were afraid of what other people would think. And so them seeing you do it gave them a little bit of excitement. Like, man, if only I could do that myself, right? Okay, so I got onto the airport, or to the marathon, and I didn't have a hotel booked when I flew in. So I landed there, and the night before I tried to get an Airbnb, but they just hadn't responded yet, right? I think it was because I was running the marathon. They knew I was going to wake up at 4 a.m. Maybe not. Maybe they just didn't respond, whatever it was. I get there, and I don't have a place to stay. So I'm looking up like, oh no. I find this hostel I can stay at. It was like $50. So if I would have stayed with the Airbnb, if they would have said yes, that would have been $110. I'm lucky, quote unquote, that I was kind of put in that situation last minute where I had to find a different place, that I found this hostel because it was cheaper, and the owner was a really cool guy. I was talking with him for like an hour after the race, just about real estate and ideas and all these different things. So it was pretty cool. But anyways, maybe the extraction from that part is, sometimes spontaneity leads to serendipity. Oh, that's cool. I like that. Okay, so then let's see here. I get there, and this is another part. Like, anyways, I eat dinner right before I go to sleep, and then I wake up, go to the race, And the whole thing was saved by this lady named Anne. She was a big marathon runner. She used to be. Then she took a break, and then now she's just volunteering at these events. And Anne saved my life. She was the reason why I was able to pick up my packet the morning of, because she grabbed it for me and said, "Hey, don't worry, Wyatt. I will get it to you." Right? So, Anne, if you're ever watching this, I really appreciate that. But maybe this is a message from this part. If you're a volunteer, or if you have the power to do something that would really make someone's day, do it, because you never know what impact you can have with your actions. And allowing me to do that marathon, whether or not she knew that I was going to do a marathon in all 50 states, right? She had no idea. She just allowed me to do the first marathon of 50 this year, and one of the biggest in the country, and who knows where this is going to go, right? We're seeing the match being lit on a firework that is yet to explode, right? And so, and thank you for lighting that match. And for anyone who's out there who's a volunteer or whatever it is, you never know the power of your actions, right? Okay, so then I grabbed the packet from Anne, and the morning of, my stomach is feeling a little bit queasy, right? Not that good. Per usual, I got to figure out how to get, rid of the pre-race nerves a little bit better. Was it Lily? Okay, anyways, I started going on the race, and I'm by myself, and because I started a little bit late, because I had to go to the bathroom, I was kind of pushing myself to go a little bit faster, right? So I started out the race at 8:20s, 8:30s. I had no idea going into it what my pace was going to be, but I didn't really look at my phone to see how many miles I was doing or see my pace until mile 18, right? So for most of the race, I was basically just cruising, just going at a good pace. And maybe every now and again I would check, but I would never look at the miles, right? It was more about the race itself in the moment, seeing how I felt, than saying oh, I should be at a certain pace. It's you have no idea what you're going to feel like on race day. You have no idea what the conditions will be like, the elevation. It wasn't the same course that you trained on. So, you can't be too hard on yourself on the pace. More so, do you feel good? That's the main thing you got to worry about, right? Okay, so then meet this guy named Maurizio. He's a really cool guy from Italy. He lives in the U.S., and it's his first marathon, so we're pacing with each other, and that was pretty fun. And then, anyways, I'm 18 miles into the race. Now, with a marathon, and we'll walk through the extraction in just a second, more than just talking about the experience. But for a marathon, mile 18 is usually the point where everything gets really difficult, right? Because your body runs out of sugar and starts burning or breaking down muscle to provide enough energy for it to keep going, right? And so then, because the process of breaking down fat takes a little bit too long, so then muscle is easier to break down. That's the gist, right? So there's usually a point when people hit a wall around mile 18. This is what happened last year in February during my first marathon that I ran, the Publix Atlanta Marathon. And I walked for 8 miles. That's why I did so bad on the marathon, right? But something was in me. I don't know what it was. I paced really well up until that point, and the only thing that was hurting was my inside of my ankle, and I was a little bit worried that I was gonna do something bad to it. But I just kind of try to change up my form and make sure that I was running the best I could. And at a certain point, I just started pushing past the pain in my legs or the pain in my ankle, and then the ankle pain went away, which was great. At that point, I was locked in. I was like, okay, this is where I excel, right? I've gotten through the race thus far at a pretty good pace. I'd be set to get a sub-4 marathon. But I was like, you know what? This is where the race actually starts. I'm going to start going all out right now, because it'd be so much better to be able to finish this marathon with a strong finish. And so I was like, let me see how fast I can go. I've been pacing really well up until this point. I see everyone around me is exhausted. They've hit a wall. How many people can I pass from this point forward? How many people, and it was less about passing people. It was more about what do I have in me? Do I have the ability to go faster, right? I ended up dropping from 8:40, 8:50 pace down to an 8:23 at the end of it, which is crazy if you think about it, because I had a third of the race left, but I dropped it by 20 seconds. My pacing for the last 8 miles was 7:50, 7:40, 7:30, 7:20. all the way down to 7:14, right? And so I was just zooming, like, going super fast, and I didn't know that I had that in me, so that was cool because I've only ever run 4 marathons. The first was official. The second was not really that official. I took a break every 2 miles. The third, that's when I ran it around a football field, which if I haven't made a video about that, I need to. The third was just last week when I ran the first marathon of the year, and I took an hour break at mile 18, right? The fourth one was this one, and my my nutrition was a lot better on this race, right? And so then I think that's why I was able to do a lot better on this go round. Okay, so then anyways, let's do the extraction for marathons. Why would you want to see your life as a marathon, right? Because the whole phrase of a marathon, it's not a marathon, it's a marathon, not a sprint. That whole phrase, right? I like to see that as my life. Why would you want your life to be a sprint? If a sprint, you go all out and you're doing it as fast as you can go, but it ends really quick, right? You think of like a 100-meter dash, and it's very impressive for Usain Bolt to be able to do a 100-meter dash in 9 seconds, whatever it is, right? But honestly, I think it's more impressive for a marathon runner to do pretty close to that pace, but for 2 hours, right? That's impressive. I think, short distance is nice, but like if you're a long distance, you can push through the pain. It's so much more respectable, right? In my opinion, at least. So, but anyways, why would you want to see your life as a marathon, not a sprint? Because you want it to last. You want to enjoy that experience, right? And so then when you're running a marathon, it's let's say it's less pain in the moment than you would experience during like a sprinting period, right? Because your body is running off a different source of fuel, and so you experience less pain when you're running that long distance, right? But it's sustained over a longer time. It's more impressive that way, and it allows you to see what you're actually capable of. A sprint, it's done in an instant. It's like a sheet of paper that burns up in a blaze, right? It looks nice for a second, and then it's gone. You'd much rather have a log in the fire that's going to burn for hours, right? And the heat's going to keep you going, keep you warm throughout the night, right? As well with a marathon, not a sprint, you want to be able to set a pace and go with it, right? And do what feels right in the moment instead of having to feel like you have to do a certain thing. I feel like with the sprint mindset, you get through college, and once you're through college, you get your first job, and then now you have to get your first promotion, and maybe we gotta save up enough money to buy a house. Blah 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 blah. It's all these it's sprints. You're always worried, right? That's not a good way to live. I think a better way to live is to to always be going at a certain level, right? It doesn't matter if you're excuse me. Doesn't matter if you're capable of, running at the level that a ultramarathon runner or a, world record holder like Eliud Kipchoge is able to run. You don't have to go all out at that pace, whatever pace you're at. I think it's just respectable to be able to maintain that pace for 4 hours, right? So then you set a pace for yourself, and then you show up every second, every mile, every minute, So the people who sprint in life, right? They get through college, and then then they think that life is, that's the peak of their life. Or they get through high school and they played football. It's like, remember the good old days? I never want to say that. I never want to say remember the good old days, because I want to be living in them, right? Every single day I want to be the good old days. I want to be having new experiences my whole life, right? So it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's a continual race. It's continual effort. And so then another way to view it is you don't want to go too slow up front. You also don't want to sprint or go too fast off the front. You want to figure out what exactly you're capable of, right? That way, as you go along, you are able to get through the bulk of the race at that pace and then realize, oh, I have more left in me, right? So from one perspective, for as long as you can, you show up consistently for yourself. And then eventually you realize like you're capable of so much more, right? And so then you go out there and you empty the tank and see what happens. That's a phrase from Jesse Itzler, right? So then that's a cool perspective. And then on top of that, a marathon instead of a sprint. Like if you look at the 26 miles as like your life, right? For the first 18 miles, you're pushing yourself, saving up that energy for the future or for those last 8 miles, because that's where it gets difficult, right? This is where the race actually starts. I think that the midlife crisis, when you get to like the half marathon point, is big for some people because they're sprinting in some areas of their life, but they're not even walking in some of the other areas, right? So then they get to a point in their life where they're like, wow, I have very little time left. I have to make up for lost time. Well, then they have to stop sprinting over here and start sprinting over here, and then they're walking over here. It's like, instead of doing all this sprinting everywhere and being exhausted and everything, you want to be able to be running at whatever pace you can hold in this area, over here, with your family, with your body, with this project that you're working on, with your friends, like all these different things. You want to have constant maintenance, right? And it's important to sprint at certain points, but you feel it out in the moment. You don't sprint. You don't sprint. Well, yeah. I'm not gonna. I'll touch on this in a second, but you don't sprint up the hill, right? But you do lean into the hill, and that was a big lesson that I learned from this marathon. But let me finish up this one part. So then, those last 8 miles, right? When you're older, if you haven't done the maintenance your entire life, then there will be a point when you are no longer able to lean on work during the day, right? And I think the most valuable way to set up your life is to where it could be useful when you're 80 years old, right? So what does that look like? Well, you want to have enough money in retirement so you don't have to work when you're 80, or you don't want to have to live in like a suboptimal living space. You want to be able to have strong relationships that last after you're 80, great stories to share, wonderful knowledge that you can teach other people, and incredible experiences that give you the energy when your body is breaking down to continue to push through, so that you get to see your grandchildren, and so you get to dance at your daughter's wedding and everything like that, right? Those are the beauties of life. You want to set up your life so that you can cash in on the work that you put in up until that point when you're 80 years old, because that's when it's most valuable, right? Everything that leads up, all the studying that leads up to the test is valuable up until the point of the test, right? And then you're judged on the performance at the very end. That's always the case. Why don't we treat life that way? You should be judging your life, setting up your life so that it would be useful when you're 80 years old. Because at the end of your life, those are the last few moments that you get to enjoy the effort that you put into this life, right? So I think that's another reason why you want to treat your life as a marathon, not a sprint. Is like, it gets difficult, those last 8 miles, right? This is the point when your body starts to break down. There's some parallels here between the marathon and the end of your life. And in the same way that you want to have that energy where you can sprint over the finish line, you want to, and in order to do that, you have to kind of like maintain this average pace or slowly get faster as you go throughout the race. That way, when you get to the end, you're able to do that sprint at the finish. People see you at the beginning of your life and at the end. This was another point that kind of connects with this whole metaphor, is that for most of the time during the race, you're by yourself. You're up here, right? And so then, if you're the type of person that wants to sprint off the finish and sprint, at the very end, sprint off the start and sprint to the finish. Well, what about the other 24 miles where no one was in sight? No one was able to see what you were doing. What were you doing during those miles, right? Because that's what really matters. Your life experience most of the time will be in absence of other people, right? Most of the time you're up here. And so you only have the confidence that you've done well in this life if you know that you've done well up here by yourself, most of the time when no one's looking, you're doing the right things, right? Yeah, so that's an interesting part as well. Why you want to be a marathon and not a sprint? It's because the whole crowd is watching during a sprint. But I think it's more impressive to be able to push through over a sustained period of time, or sustaining that discomfort over a period of time during the marathon when you're by yourself, right? It's much more impressive to see someone working out by themselves, especially when they're not that strong or overweight or whatever it is. It's like, you go, man. Like, that's awesome. I love the courage that you have to put yourself out there, the ability to not care what other people think, and the strength that you have. That even though you've put yourself in a bad position, you're still trying to figure out a way to get yourself out of it, right? And that's an encouraging, inspiring perspective, right? But anyways, you get to the end of the race, and instead of easing up at the end, you go all out, right? You don't walk up a hill, you lean into it, right? It's much easier to lean into a hill when you're running up and go a little bit faster. Sprint so that you're over the hill. And then when you're going downhill, instead of leaning into it because you'll fall over, that's when you slow down a little bit, catch your breath, right? Life follows these cycles of going uphill and down, uphill and down. And so then you lean into it when the time gets tough. Most of the time, people say like, oh, I wish I had the time to do X, Y, and Z. But you'll never have the time, right? So then right now when your schedule is busy, here's another perspective, and this is from Alex Hormozy. Even if you did have the time, there will be a time when you don't have that time, right? So then if you started when you did have the time, well, then what happens when you no longer have time, when you get really busy? You've built up this skill set or this ability during a period of rest, a period of an easy schedule. So when you get tested over here, you don't know if you're going to be able to persevere through that, right? You want to lean into the hill. You want to learn when you are busy. That way, in any situation, you know that you can push through, right? You are able to push through because you've seen in the past that you've been able to do that, right? Okay, so then you push into the hill, you lean into it, end of the race. Yeah, I think that's basically it. You make sure that you fuel yourself along the way, right? That most people, they run out of carbs, and then that's why they start, slogging or whatever it is, right? In any situation, you want to make sure that you're staying on top of rest and recovery while also, pushing through. So this applies in life. Like, you want to make sure that you're supplying yourself with what you need to keep going, right? If you need to take a nap at 2 p.m. every single day, but the days that you do that allow you to produce twice as much as you're able to do on other days, who cares, man? Go for it, right? Like, I don't care that you're taking a nap if you're putting that amount of work and effort out into the world after taking a nap. If it allows you to be better at your work, then do it, right? Whatever it takes to compete at the highest level, that's what you got to do. But yeah, I think it really comes down to this. Like, look at your life as, in decades, instead of looking at it the next 100 meters. Maybe it's a mix, right? You don't want to get caught up on the fact that you have to run 26 miles, because if you do, you get anxious, and then you start letting the fear get to your head. You give fear a voice, and it takes over, right? But at the same time, you don't want to be too focused on the 100 meters ahead of you, because you don't want to sprint too fast to where you're lost, or you're out of breath, out of energy at the end of the race. So it's a mix of I'm going to focus on the steps that are right in front of me, but I'm also going to know that I've got to be able to run all 26 miles, right? I'm going to focus on what's right in front of me. I'm going to work on what I need to today, but I have this greater vision for my life. I have this this image of what it could look like and what it will look like after I put in this work. I'm not just focusing solely on the moment. I'm also focusing on the future, and I'm planning for both, right? And it's a constant back and forth of, okay, well, mile 7, Am I on pace? Yep, we're all good. Well, no worries. Like I'm feeling good. Mile 7, keep my head down and keep moving forward, right? Make sure I'm fueling up, taking my gel packets. And as long as I'm doing that, like I'm having a good race. That's the same thing with life, What are the things you should be doing every single day? Working out, reading, calling a friend, and doing something productive, maybe learning something. If you do all those things every single day, and, even if it doesn't look like the needle move forward, if you're reading 35 pages a day, that's a book a year. No, 52 books a year. If you're reading 5 pages a day, then that's 10 books a year. 7. I don't know, something like that. We'll just go with it. Basically, consistency is more important than, getting everything done right now, all at once. This is why it's more important to the rule of hara hachi bu, right? Eat until you're 80% full. Part of the reason in life you should eat until you're 80% full is because you need to be able to eat food every single day, right? So if you eat so much food that you're just stuffed, that tomorrow you just don't want to eat, same thing applies in life. Like that's probably not a good thing. If you read an entire book in one day, but it causes you to not want to read it all the other days, then it's not a good thing that you've done that, even though it's a good thing that you finished the book, because it got you out of that consistent habit, right? If you run like a 10-mile day today, but then the next time you run is 10 days from now, or 2 weeks, or whatever it is, it's not a good thing. It's much better to run a mile every single day, because then some days you might feel like doing 3 or 4, right? Than it is to do 10 miles today and wait 2 weeks to run again, right? At this point I'm kind of rambling, so I'm going to finish it out with this. Like, you want to lean into the hill, and you don't want to give yourself an option, right? If you want something to change, you have to make it a necessity. You have to make it inevitable. You have to make it not an option to do. And so with this first marathon, I think this is going to open the door to, the future I have in mind for myself. It's an incredible story. It's pushed my body, my mind, and I'm going to meet some incredible people along the way. So it's fueling my soul, right? On top of that, I have to post consistent videos about it, and it really is the best of all the worlds, right? All in one. So I really think that this is going to be the start. And sometimes you got to do the things that you don't want to do. Most of the time, you got to do the thing that you don't want to do to open the door to the future that you want, right? Because, the thing that you want should be difficult to get. It shouldn't be easy. It shouldn't be over in seconds. It should be a bit of a process, because you can look back at the end and know that all the work that you put out there. Be proud of yourself for the fact that you were able to maintain a consistent pace, but on top of that, put down a lot of effort at the very end to sprint, whenever you do, to get across the finish line and hear people cheering. It's a great thing. It's a wonderful life. And I think do the consistent effort every single day, and it'll add up to massive heights, right? That's the best way to say it. Yeah, go run a marathon sometime in the next year. Why not us?